Hey guys, how you doing? Steve Lab here. Just a continuation of the Hydronic series. On this one here, I talk about monoflow tees and cast iron radiators and all, cast iron baseboard and cast iron radiators that you need monoflow tees. I kind of go over that with you. I also go over some, fan coil units and different type of first company units for Hydronic. Like if you got ductwork in a house, we'd have a first company unit. Basically, there's a heating coil in there, and then there's a evaporator coil in there for the air conditioning, and there'd be a boiler to heat up, run water to another zone for that heating coil in that first company unit. We have a lot of them up here, first company units. So if the house has all ductwork, that's how they would heat it with the first company units. Heat pumps are a good thing, but sometimes, we get down in the 20s a lot up here, and anything below 40, they say you're not supposed to be running the heat pumps. And electric heat's just, they don't have it up here. So that's the deal there. Hopefully, hopefully I don't bore you with these Hydronics series. I'm just trying to give some of the guys down south a little feel for what's happening up here. With different stuff, and if you watch all the series, you might get a feel for what's going on, and you could apply it to any situation you run in. That's why I'm doing it. It's not for the guys up north, because the guys up north work on this stuff all the time. It's more or less for the southern guys that don't see it. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the video.
All right, guys, on this one I'm going to talk about a Venturi tee on a Hydronic system. Okay, if the water's coming in this way, okay, what it's going to do is it's going to push the water up here. See how this little funnel is here? It's going to want to force the water up this way. Now, if you turn it around and you got the water coming in this way, it's going to come through this Venturi, and it's going to create a Venturi action and suck the water. We use these on like cast iron baseboard and whatnot. You get like a 1-inch loop all the way around in the basement. You have your boiler here. This is a little diagram I made of the Venturi tee. If you're coming in this way, you'll push the water up, okay, and the water will be going this way. Now if you turn the Venturi around and you're coming this way, as you go through, it creates a siphon and pulls the water. So on a system like this, obviously, you have your boiler here, you'd have your water feeder coming in, the old style expansion tank up against the ceiling, and you'd have a couple of Venturi tees. You'd have a loop in the basement, and probably a 0010 circular. You'd have a loop in the basement, okay, and it would circulate like that. And what would happen is, as you put the Venturis, you'd put a Venturi here to push up to the cast iron baseboard, and this one would pull. This one would push, this one would pull. Now you got to have at least 12 inches between any elbows and 12 inches between any Venturi fittings. Venturi or monoflow tees, they call them. But you don't need 12 inches between, after you turn here with the elbow, you need another 12 inches. But that's basically a Venturi loop. Monoflow tees would use that on the old, the cast iron baseboard up up above, and you'd go with a now on something like that you can't go with a shotgun system. Now if you had copper fin baseboard, you could go up through the copper fin, then back down, back up through the copper fin, but not with cast iron baseboard or old-fashioned radiators. You got to go with this style. Alright guys, I wanted to go over one more system that I see once in a while. This would be an old cast iron radiator system. Big cast iron radiators in a house, high volume. This would be an old gravity system back in the day. You'd have a big boiler downstairs. Relief valve, obviously. Water feeder. An expansion tank up against the ceiling. Big ass expansion tank that you got to drain down every couple of years. And what you would do is you'd have a supply and return. Go over the supply. The supply would go over, feed the radiator. Continue over, pick up this radiator, continue over, pick up this radiator, and this radiator. And the return would be, the return, the last radiator, the first radiator supplied would be the last radiator returned. So it would be balanced out that way. So if you see the return, the first radiator supply is the last radiator returned. And it would balance that way. That's how they would do it. There would be no monoflow tees. This would just be big volume. Probably 1.5 inch, 1/4 pipe going to the radiators. Hydronic system. Probably a 2 inch, 2.5 inch pipe down in the basement. You know, back in the day there was no circulator, and then somebody come along, added a circulator to make it more efficient. One zone, one thermostat on the first floor. Big ass boiler. Big volume system. You see a lot of that in the old houses. Some of these old systems, you know, they work. They take forever to heat up. Very inefficient. Now, on something like this, if you change the boiler, you'd have to put a bypass between the supply and return, because you'd have all this volume of water coming back. If it was gas or oil, especially oil, you'd need, you know, if it was gas, you'd have to put a bypass on it. You know. But that's another system that I wanted to go over with you. First supplied would be the last returned. And then that balances it out. Basically, they'd all heat up at the same time. You know, you might have some T's running over to the second floor, a couple of lines going up to the second floor, a couple of radiators on the second floor off this system. You know, if you might have another loop for the second floor. You might have, you know, 2 loops. This is 2 loops here. You might have 4 loops. First and second. Well, that's something I wanted to bring just so you guys know. It's a possibility. Let me see, I got another little diagram here that shows you. Alright, basically this is how it works. Okay, so you got your flow coming in this way. Okay, the way this Venturi T is, it's going to push. Okay, it's going to push the water up to the unit. Then if you see as it continues to go on, it comes through the Venturi this way, and this is going to be a pulling action. So it's going to push it with this T because it's going in one direction. All you got to do is switch the T around. Whatever you want to accomplish. Go up to unit heater or baseboard, whatever you want. Now sometimes you can get by with just one Venturi fitting. I see that a lot. Some of the old stuff, they'll use just one Venturi fitting. Then you go with a regular T. Okay, so on this here, the water would come up here into the unit, and then the Venturi on this one would be pulling. Again, you could do it just on a supply. You could push the water up to the unit or the radiator. A lot of times you'll see that in the old-fashioned radiators, the old stand-up cast iron radiators, but it's always for maximum flow. Apply return and supply. That's the best way. You know? And if this was within 12 inches, if you got 2 T's within 8 inches apart, it's not going to work. You know, you got to have at least 12 inches, rule of thumb. From an elbow, when an elbow turns, you need at least 12 inches for it to straighten out before you do a Venturi action, or you got too much turbulence in there. I see that sometimes, you know, people complaining, oh, my radiator's not heating. You go down, look at the piping in the basement, and it's screwed up. Typical, look at this, typical minimal flow of supply and return. Greater flow, they want you to push it up, but the maximum flow is the 2 T's. Now you also can use this like on a Kickspace heater under the kitchen sink cabinet. If you got a shotgun system with baseboard in the house, and you're gonna go with a Kickspace heater under the kitchen sink or in a bathroom because you don't have room for the baseboard, you have to use monoflow T's on that loop to send it up to that Kickspace heater. That's the only thing you could do. So I'm just trying to go over a little something different here. These monoflow T's are part of the Hydronic system. That it's important to know all this stuff. Alright, now on copper monoflow T, you'll see it'll have like a ring on it. Okay, so it depends on which direction you put the ring. It's either going to be on a supply. This one would be going on a return. If the water came in this way, it'd be sucking. Now, if you turn it around and you put the water in this way, it'd be pushing up. You can either get them in brass or copper. You know, they go 1/2, 3/4 Depends on the application you need. 1.25 by half. There's all different sizes. 1.25 by 3/4. They got them in malleable steel also. A lot of the old stuff was all screw pipe. There's just a couple of things I'm going over here with you. This is something you need to know. Alright guys, here's a little Kickspace heater that you'd have underneath a either a bathroom sink or a kitchen sink if you got no place for baseboard. And you'd need monoflow tees on this to send the water up here to feed this. And how this works is there's a little sensor on the pipe, and as a zone calls. So this would be like in a residential house that had regular baseboard. And this would be in the kitchen or in the bathroom because there's no room to put baseboard. There's no wall room. So what would happen is on a house like that, you'd have a shotgun system. It'd go through one radiator, then down underneath, back up to another radiator. And what it would do is you have a couple of monoflow tees, to send water up to here and then back to it. And what happened is when that thermostat called for heat, there's a little sensor on this pipe. When this thing heated up, it would just kick the fan on. There's power to that sensor at all times. And there's high and low, off, minimum, and high on these. There's different sizes. But this is the little Kickspace heater. So on something like this, you would need the monoflow tees, the copper 3/4 by half monoflow tees to feed this. So, just something I wanted to go over. Another thing I want to talk about is unit heaters. Now on this, what you would do on a unit heater, you'd have a supply and return, off another zone off the boiler, with its own circulator. And there's a little sensor in here. And what happens is the thermostat would call, send water up to this unit. Okay, it'd heat up. When that sensor heated up, it just kicked the fan on in the back and just blow fan across that coil to heat up the area where in concern. I worked on one of these just recently, Modine. But that's that's a unit heater. That's another thing with hydronics. Hydronic is basically just water inside the pipe. You're heating the water up, then the water's getting sent through whatever apparatus you want to heat. That's all it is. That's the only thing hydronics is. There's another one here. This one looks like it's gas-fired. See the gas pipe coming down? This one's gas-fired. Modine makes gas-fired units, and they also make strictly something like this you'd put in a garage. A little unit heater up high in a garage to heat the garage up. Them are perfect for garages. Alright guys, we got a lot of these first company units up my way. They got a hydronic coil up top here. The boiler would feed that for heating. And they would have, ductwork throughout the house. And then the refrigerant lines would come over here for the cooling in the summertime. We have a lot of these up my way, these first company units. So, there would be a boiler down in the basement, feeding a couple of these units, one on the second floor, one on the first floor for heat. We don't have electric heat up here. So, I just figured I'd show that. We have a lot of these first company units. A lot of them. Up my way. So, we also have a lot of these wall units like this. That would have a coil in here that would, get fed, hydronic heating type of thing with little blowers. See these a lot in like small commercial buildings up against the wall. Little unit heaters. See a lot of them. Some of these are ceiling units. Hydronic ceiling units. It's all basically the same type of stuff, guys. Just putting hot water to it. That's all you're doing. And there's a little fan in there with a little sensor. When it heats up, the fan just blows. It's pretty basic.